The Paris Tour, probably the longest sprint race in the world, I suppose, 250 kilometres to be covered between Paris and Tours. It's pretty flat. There's one or two little conks towards the end, but nothing to trouble the field. And normally we get a mass bunch sprint going down the finishing straight to see who's going to get it. That's what happened the last couple of years. In fact, well, 9 men contested the sprint 2 years ago, but it's usually a big bunch at the end of it all. And it's also been a bit of a Belgian and Dutch benefit in the last 40 years or so. But at the moment, I hope we go out down the road and have a look what's happening, because we've had a breakaway group of 2 riders, Seigneur together with the young French rider Stefan Koeuf, and they've had a tremendous lead so far, and they're getting now to being probably well and truly I suppose caught up with this fast-moving bunch of riders right now, because you can see on the front there the Novell team begin to drive very hard indeed. It's quite fascinating, this Paris Tour, how the Belgian, what I call crit specialists, I suppose, come and ride this race. We find we get the Vlaanderen 2002 Eddy Merckx team taking part in it. We get the Koolstrup Leistech team taking part in it as well. And they're very much the teams that favour the Kermesse type racing in Belgium, and then come down to the Paris Tour, which is like one long drawn-out flat Kermesse, I suppose. And it's always run off at a great speed. And in fact, today we had an early break of some 30 riders after a mostly damp and dismal start this morning at Tour. It was quite pleasant there, really, sort of mist hanging about the place. The riders have been through a bit of rain, but generally speaking, a bit on the chilly side this morning. An early break of 30 riders went away, and they had some 40 kilometres out in the front, and they never got more than about 40 to 50 seconds away from the bunch at all. They went through the first hour, 47 kilometres in the first hour. There we are, looking down there, we can see the Telecom team on the front now, the pink colours. Also the pale blue of the Gewiss beginning to mass on the front as well, looking for a bunch sprint, I suppose. But that group that went away this morning really set a hot pace, because, as I say, in the first hour, 47 kilometres. In the second hour, 43 kilometres, making 90 kilometres were covered in just 2 hours of racing, an average speed of some 45 kilometres per hour. And that was tremendously fast going. And when they sort of began to slow down a bit, off clopped around about 90 to 100 kilometre mark, Stefan Koeuf and Eddy Seigneur went away, and they actually built up substantial lead of some 14 minutes was the maximum that we had for the 2 leaders, Stefan Koeuf and Eddy Seigneur, away for what I suppose if they get towards the end of this race, they'll have spent the thick end of 180 kilometres out on the front, but I very much doubt that they'll get swallowed up in the end of it. So the first hour 47 kilometres, second hour 43 kilometres, and in that main bunch down there, if you spot the TVM colours, bear a thought then for Rob Harmeling. He hasn't had a very good couple of years now. He won a stage in the Tour de France in 1992, but seems to have had a bit of a problem with his health and fitness since then, and so now he's decided this will be his last race. In fact, for many of these riders you're looking at now, it is the last race of the season. And this morning down at the start at the headquarters, before they all set off down the road, the 170 riders who had signed on yesterday, the atmosphere virtually was like school breaking up, and they're all sort of talking about where you're going for your holidays, where you're going for your holidays. And I had a little chat to Eros Polly, and he's gone off with his Australian wife off to the Aegean Sea for a couple of weeks to enjoy himself there. Paul Sherwin, had a chat to him too, and he's not riding, of course, but he's with the Motorola squad. He is going off, not actually on his holidays, but he's off to Australia with Phil Liggett. They're doing a race out there at the moment. And talking of racing down the Southern Hemisphere, Henri Rodant is riding today. I had a chat to Henri this morning. You may remember that in the Tour he had a terrible crash in the neutralised section, and has been out off his bike for something like about 6 weeks. And when he started back again, he said he felt he broke every bone in his body. And Henrik can't remember anything about the crash, which happened in the neutralised part. Well, Henrik's off to down to South Africa, where a lot of the TVM riders are going, some from the Onse team as well, some from the ZG team and Akai and so on. The whole load of riders are heading off down to South Africa. The sponsor of the race down there has put a lot more money into the kitty, so many of the riders you're looking at here will be packing their bags and disappearing off to South Africa to race down there. So it really has extended the season tremendously. And talking packing his bags, in this little group as well, I haven't actually spotted Chris Boardman yet, but I spoke to him this morning, and Chris was saying as soon as they finish this race today, they're going to get a police escort back to Paris with all the team cars, because lots of them have got to catch airplanes to go all over the place. And So Chris will be with the gun team hammering back up the motor. He finished watching the Novell team winding away here on the front at the moment. There goes Gewiss, setting it up for Minali on the final sprint, if they can make it there, to have a sprint down the finishing straight. And of course, as far as I'm waiting to see the Telecom team come on the front. No, they're a bit back at the front. They're going to try and set up Frederick Sabel, who won this race in 1994. They're all hammering along. There's the nice little group of riders. Now, tucked in there is Chris Boardman, who rode in the Paris-Bourges on Wednesday. Paris-Bourges is virtually a race that goes dead south from Paris, starts on the outskirts like this race does, starts on the outskirts of Paris and runs straight down to Bourges and covers 209 kilometres compared with 250 kilometres for this particular race here. And it drops dead south as such, and that was held on Wednesday. And if you haven't caught up with the result, let me tell you, the fellow who won it was Nardello of the Mapei GB team, and Nardello won the race, and he averaged 47.803 kilometres per hour. Now, 48 kilometres per hour is exactly 30 miles an hour. So imagine how fast many of these riders you're looking at here were going. And in fact, Chris was saying to me, I said, where did you finish? He said, I finished. And so I didn't push for anything much closer than that. Anyway, I was talking about Senior and Cuff being out the front. The gap now down to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It was 14 minutes way back down the road. So the gap is coming down all the time now. Chris Boardman happily finished. I said, well, you know, any pain and suffering? He said no, but he doesn't really like racing and getting his head kicked in, as he put it, like today, hammering along in this group here as part of his training to get back into the swing of things. But we wish him well, and so he's out there in the middle of that bunch. So again, he said his head kicked in, just making up the numbers. Good on you, Chris, and congratulations to that time trial win back in Great Britain at the back end of last week. Here we are, that's the route they're going to take. You can see how they run down. We're getting towards the bottom end of the course now. You can see here, after that start at Saint-Ouen-en-Yvelines, Laborde, Saint-Oustriel, and then back down the bottom to Cruchot. And there's a couple of little conks towards the back end of this one, on this, the 89th Paris Tour. It dates back, by the way, to 1901. So you say, well, you know, 1901, and this is the 89th as such. That only makes 1990, so we're a few short. In fact, what happened, they've also been running the race into the south side of Paris, and they've had it called the Grand Prix of Autumn, many other things. But now we're looking at the two breakaway riders in the front who want to stamp their names on this great race, which dates back to 1901. That's Eddie Seigneur in the French colours, the blue, the white and the red. He's a national champion of France. And just up in front of you, a young lad from the Seine Mutuelle. That's an insurance company that sponsors them, and they've got a lead about 3.5 minutes at the moment. Looking at our two breakaway riders, who are now, I think, beginning to wonder just how much longer they can exist out the front. They've been riding very, very strongly indeed, but the bunch really has got the sniff, and they begin to say, let's pull these two back. The last time check we had, 3.5 minutes. It was 14 minutes further back down the road. Fairly typical, I think, for most of the breaks on the Paris Tour. You get people clopping off, and then bit by bit they get drawn back in towards the end of the race. But here, Eddie Seigneur, a very powerful man indeed. Not only the champion of France, but the man who's really done well in things like the 4 days of Dunkirk, where he won it last year, took a stage victory in that one as well, and the previous year when he finished third and took a stage as well. So Eddie Seigneur for the GAN team, that's the same team as Chris Boardman, doing most of the work on the front at the moment. If you haven't seen the colours here of the Mutuelle and Seine here, it is an insurance company, and what's happening in France at the moment, there's a lot of, if I use the word B-grade teams, please excuse me that they're all very, very competent riders, but most of them are just turned from the amateur ranks into the pro ranks, and if they get one or two good pros in, that's as many as they can afford to have in there. But they are making up the numbers in France now, and looking into next year, it seems that only GAN is likely to be the #1 French team into next year, with Castrama still not going on with their sponsorship next year. So it looks really as if the French are going to have to rely on teams like that one. We also got another team riding in the race today, the Aubervilliers 93 Peugeot team. And that's part sponsored by Peugeot, but to a large extent Aubervilliers on the north side of Paris are sponsoring their team there, what they call a promotional team. They're up 2 minutes and 45 seconds, a gap coming down with this bunch absolutely thundering along here at a great rate of knots. I mentioned that the Paris Bourges was done at record speed of 47,803 kilometres per hour when Nardella won that one. The first, that's right, I'm just checking my notes here, because Stephen Hodge told me this morning that they did in the first 3 hours of that race 150 kilometres in 3 hours. They averaged 50 kilometres an hour for the first 3 hours. That was on Wednesday, so there are going to be some very tired legs in this bunch here. As we now get the Telecom team on the front, I thought they might begin to show, because they've got Adik Zabel, who wears number 1 on his bike, as their front man. Ralph Aldag just nipping off the front there at number 2. We've lost him on the right-hand side of our screen at the moment, as the Gewiss also get in the act. He was whistling a bit this morning, Ralph Aldag, because at breakfast he managed to bite on the food and broke one of his front teeth. So he was trying to talk to his lips up and knocked out because he didn't want to see me and got his teeth. But poor chap then, having lost a tooth, is now hammering along here with the wind whistling through his teeth. Blue jerseys for Gewiss, the pinky ones for Telecom, trying to catch back those 2 breakaways and set up for a sprint. Talking of high speed, by the way, let me put you in a picture about Miguel Indurain's attempt on the hour record. He started on the hour record at 6 o'clock this morning. That was Colombian time, which would be, let's see, 6 hours after that one over here. It was just about midday in Central European time. Indurain had a go at the hour record this morning on the Bogota track, the one which was used for the World Track Championships, and he retired after about 31 minutes of racing. At the 5 laps or so on the 333-metre track, he was just a fraction ahead of Rominger, and his average speed for the first 15 minutes was 54.040 kilometres per hour. And remember, he's trying to break Rominger's record of 55.291. So he was down then after some 15 minutes of racing. He went on, and then when he finally retired after 31 minutes and 16.41 seconds, that's accuracy for you, he was nearly 50 seconds behind Rominger's pace, and would have, if he'd continued, probably been about 2 kilometres less than Rominger, so there's no sense in prolonging the agony. The track, which is 2,800 metres above sea level, he started at 6 o'clock in the morning because he wanted stillish conditions. There'd been a bit of wind blowing round, and the trouble was it was very cold, about 9 degrees, so it wasn't exactly ideal as far as he's concerned. But 6,000 fans packed the velodrome to cheer him on. Now, just you think about that, you people who weren't going to turn up for Manchester's track meeting, the one which Alan Rushton was going to put on Superdrome, I think they sold 108 tickets on the Friday and about 800 for the Saturday. Well, 6,000 people went to cheer Indurain on at the crack of dawn this morning in Colombia, and he rode for half an hour and climbed off his bike. He is, by the way, going to consider tonight in Colombian time whether he might go again tomorrow morning. Now, to find out what actually happens, the best thing you do is tune into Eurosport News tomorrow just to see if there is another attempt on his record, and we'll give you the information on Eurosport News tomorrow night. I'm certain about that one. Not much news at the moment about what Jenny Longo is doing. She's also going for the hour record, but I think she's staying out there at the moment. But Indurain will have a go on Monday, and then he's flying back to Europe because he's attending the presentation of the new route of the 1996 Tour de France on Tuesday in Paris, and we from Eurosport will be there as well, and we'll update you on the route on Eurosport News on the Tuesday night. So settling down, what we're looking at now, Huntermark going through for the Telecom team. They're number 4 there, Brian Holm, the Danish rider for the Team Telecom, and they're a nice little group here because they're mixing it well with the Gewiss riders, both of them very intent on pulling back those 2 breakaway riders up in front. And what a sharp contract in bikes as well too, because here we got this nice Colnago going through with its rather squarish section tubing, straight forks, hammering along here at the moment, being ridden by Van Hooijdonk, Edwin Van Hooijdonk. And then number 6 going through, that's Malo Kummer from the Deutsche Telekom team. Number 73 also now on the front, Frans Maas. And so the Novell team have got in the act as well. I think all these Novell riders, they're just making sure they get a contract for next year with Jan Raas. So look very pleased this morning with the fact he's got the Rabobank all stitched up to sponsor his activity in 1996. So there we are, a nice look back at this bunch. Start out by being 170 riders in all, and there's probably at the thick end of 100 or so left in the race. Maybe 120, 130 of them still there. Most of the riders manage to finish this one. They just sit on the wheels and just hope you can last the pace. Unfortunately, the weather's nice and kind as far as they're concerned today. Just that little short fall of rain for about an hour, which only just dampened the dust. There was the tactics still going on here. I should be rabbiting on just a bit here, but I've been waiting to see this. We were told, in fact, there was going to be a camera, and it's actually positioned under the saddle of the rider, who steady on the brakes, lads. Now you can see what it's like. You've seen these touch of wheels and people come down. Now you're actually riding virtually with your head down on the handlebars, and now it's a Pion of the Mutual Saint-Amand who's got his leader out in the front, one of his riders out in front at the moment, who's giving these pictures. They're beaming the signal up from his bike to the helicopter up above, and this is the first time I've seen it used, although they have been playing around with this. It's very common on motor racing, Formula One, where they have this very diddy little camera, and now they've managed to stick it onto a bike. I didn't get a chance to look at it too closely this morning, but next time I'll try and give you more updates on how that actually happens. That gives you a really good insight in more ways than one into the way in which it's what it's like to be in the midst of the main bunch. And there they are. Beautiful October afternoon, and the sun setting. One or two riders beginning to shove their way through here. You can see the telecom still desperately keen. 1:32. It really is coming down now. That 2:45 lead was with 30 kilometres to go, and they're getting in towards the 25 kilometres to go now, so it may be all over by the shouting. But what often happens in cases like this is you get a team like we see with Telecom. They have been blasting away on the front, and then they run out of steam. Novella started to come through. Gavis tried a little bit, but didn't work too hard. In fact, there we are, 25 kilometres to go it is. There's the little boards on the right and left-hand side, and they were travelling here at a steady 35 miles an hour. So these are two riders they're after. Eddie Senior on the front there, and the other lad from the Sailor Mutual just hanging on at the moment. Saying a very big, powerful fellow indeed. And with the gap then down to 1 minute and 25 seconds, they've got to hang on for grim death at this rate of knots, but the determination showing on their face. Heading in towards the finish in Tour then, still these two breakaway riders just clear of the main field.
Good morning.
Good morning. Only UPS guarantees next day express delivery next morning.
Buenos días.
Across both Europe and America.
Our two leaders struggling to stay away from that main group of riders. They're now virtually in sight on these long straight stretches running in towards Tour. And no wonder they're looking a bit puffed here. They've been doing all they can to stay away. It's one of the abortive attempts, I think, the way the bunch is coming at them very quickly indeed. Still the determination to stay away and do what they can. Of course, the other thing is to get your name and your team some publicity. I was always surprised when they turned these jerseys out. You see how pale blue the colours are, and the very thin lettering. That is actually the letter style of the company, the insurance company, and it doesn't always come up very well on the cameras from a long way off. As you see, GAN, that great big black lettering on the jersey, very easy to see as such. And I'm going to put my watch on as they go across that zebra, that railway line, because more often than not, the following cameras might pick the bunch up as well. And let's see what's happening now. Still saying batting away here at the front. You can see the little computer, well, it's gone now, on his handlebar. They have this little computer which shows them how far they've gone, average speed and so on. And 1:05, it's come down another 20 seconds. Well, they won't need that computer telling the gap, because the board does that for them. But this morning I looked at Stephen Hodges' bike. He got what he calls a little black box. In fact, it is called a black box. It's used by the Australians. It was perfected at their Sports Institute. They use it, and they actually count. Not only does it give the polar heart beat measurement on the box as well, but it also shows things like average speed, distance travel, and the rest of it. But also there's another little device that picks up the revs of the cranks, and you get the cadence as the according to my watch, about 57 seconds the gap now, so it's come down yet again at that particular point. So they are now narrowing that gap down enormously, and the speed is on. Yes, amazing, apart from just the simple computers we're seeing now, this black box that Stephen Hodges is using, the Australians have been using it, you can actually take it back and take the little chip out and stick it in the computer, and it'll print out the whole shooting match. There are 58 seconds a gap. So in fact, the the coach can then look at your pedal revs, virtually tell you what gear you're in, from your heartbeat, how you're going. It does everything bar make the tea, I suppose, but that still means you've got to pedal the blasted bike. If you're not very fit, after the worst thing is to take it back and run it off on your computer. And I suppose it might say, get a new pair of legs or something when it finishes, prints out. Oh, that's nice of our computer man. He's run up the graphics there to show you the current position on the World Cup. This is the last but one of the World Cups. Jalabert's not riding today. Giannetti is. Baldato not riding. Bugno not riding. Fondis is riding. Chiandi's not riding. Schmil is riding. Lance Armstrong. Number 9 Armstrong. Bartoli Boy is also riding. But Lance Armstrong climbed off at the feeding station. He only flew in a couple of days ago from back from Colombia, and was suffering a little bit, I think, with jet lag, and his form's not very good at the moment. I had a chat to him this morning. He didn't seem to be too happy that he couldn't ride the World Championship when he lost his form, but he's riding a couple of Italian races during this week and may or may not ride the Tour of Lombardy, or the Giro Lombardy, as the case may be, if you're Italian or you're English, as the race is a bit hilly, and it depends what his form's likely to be at next Sunday, when we're bringing that one on Eurosport as well. In fact, quite a busy time next week on Eurosport, both with the Open de Nations and the Giro Lombardy. Let's give you some idea then, the Côte de Crochot, and that's just a short, sharp little climb, and we're getting towards the back end of the race. I'll have a little look on my thing here to tell me how far it is to go to the finish. Côte de Crochot, 21.5 kilometres to go, and Senior beginning to put the pressure on the front here, urged on by the crowd who love a Frenchman to win, because they've got to go back to 1956 to Albert Bouvet was the last French rider to win this Classics. That's 40 years ago. Come next year, they haven't had a Frenchman win it, and Senior now is trying to get away. He's dropped his breakaway companion, obviously deciding that lad hasn't got the strength to stay with him, and 21 kilometres left to go. The gap is inside 1 minute. That's a nice shot. 230 kilometres have been covered so far. That's about nearly come up to 150 miles of racing. And he's still going. There they are. The chase seems to have been broken up a bit now, and off on the right-hand side goes one of the Refin riders, bursting about the front. Looks a bit like Johan Capio at the moment. I'm surprised if it is going at this particular stage, because Johan Capio, much more a sprinter roadman, won this race in 1991, but maybe thinking if he can get up there to join up with Senior, the two may be able to hang on a bit. A fresh pair of legs might be just the thing that's needed, and certainly they haven't been chasing down the Refin riders very much. They've just been sitting in there letting the other teams do the work, and now we're seeing lots of different jerseys jumping around on the front. You see the Lotto sign down there. They're the main sponsor of the race today. That's LOTO, not the double TO, which is the Belgian lotto company. LOTO is the French lottery version, and they're the people, the Français des Jeux, that was going to sponsor Marc Madiot's team, and that is still under negotiation. All sort of wheeling and dealing going on to try and keep the team on the road. But the trouble, I suppose, if Marc does manage to get the finance, there'll be no riders left for him to employ. They'll all be off signed up somewhere else. All the France urging on Eddie Senior in his desperate attempt to stay clear. The road twists and turns quite a bit. These narrower lanes are certainly going to be an advantage for one man on his own, provided he's got the strength left in his legs. Rides for Gann, and in fact, looking back down here now, they've closed the gap on the other breakaway rider, Stefan Kueff. That's C-U-E-F-F, Kueff, who's now been absorbed, and they've gone straight past him, and he'll look for somewhere in the tail end to sit there and hope to be sucked in towards the finish. So the Gann rider on the front, just trying to ease it back a bit and slow it down. There's no concerted effort. There's not one single team with about 3 or 4 riders on the front at the moment. I told you how it goes twisting very narrowly, and that will certainly suit a one lone rider. There's some fairly ambitious men in there with a lot of speed in their legs too. Senior very happy to be on these narrow roads, but 30 seconds is the gap, and he's got 20 kilometres to go. Oh no, this can't be on. Team manager still came up to give him some support. His fellow rides for the same team as Chris Boardman. By the way, Chris is riding at Bercy. We're bringing you next week from the track at Bercy 3 of the days racing there, or I should say afternoon, because the Sunday afternoon, I think it's from 3 o'clock till 7 or thereabouts. On the Saturday, the racing Saturday, Sunday and Monday, as the Festinas get stuck in here. And if you can get a good deal off your travel agent and want to see some good track racing, then I certainly recommend you come across to Bercy next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, to see the activity, because Chris Boardman is racing against Graham Aubrey on that track. Here we go, Chazelle on the front, another team that's folding at the end of this year, and one or two of these riders still wanting to show at the front. In fact, Laurent Roux, who went away in the World Road Championship last Sunday, is another rider who is searching to show himself, and I wonder why he's doing sort of suicide attack off the front and not playing to the orders of the team to sit in there and look after the affairs of Richard Virenque. And he said, well, look, I'm looking for a sponsor next year, and that's why he steamed off the front to improve his ante on his contract for next year. Laurent Roux, who is in the race today, but no doubt suffering from that. I think this one's going to last. We shall see. It's Pascal Chantre, the Chazelle team. Their big hitters, Jan Kossipu back in the main pack. Gilles de Lyon, who's had a pretty disastrous year again. Also riding for Chazelle back in the main group. And the hapless Eddie Senior is still keeping going. I say hapless because if you dare look over his shoulder, you could see the cavalry coming up very quickly indeed. Oh, well, they're still out of sight. Well, the gap before was certainly visible. Wait, no, they're not there yet. Just little specks in the distance. Had a quick look over his shoulder too. He knows now that the game is up. He knows what the gap is like. He'd been told, and the team manager came up to give him the final shout before they cleared everybody out between the one lone rider and the main pack behind. So as the Gann rider still goes away. The ride, by the way, between Boardman and Aubrey at the Bercy Stadium in Paris. It's on the east side, Bercy. It's dead easy to get out to from the centre of Paris. As they go and find a travel agent, can do you a good deal for a weekend in Paris, and go across to watch it there. But he's riding Graham Aubrey and Chris Boardman on the track in a 4-kilometre revenge on the Monday evening, and the Monday evening is going to be between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock, sorry, 12 o'clock at night, between 8 and 12. If you can't get across to see it, then we'll be showing it on Eurosport as well, as we will do all the rest of the Open International. 8 nations sending 8 riders each, and watching here Eddie Senior go, I'm looking forward to seeing how Chris Boardman reacts with Aubrey on the Bercy track. Still concentrating hard here. And just one more thing about Bercy, I'm going to bore you about this one, but in fact last year they had 16,000 people paid to go in over the 3 days. They only had 7,100 in 1991, 16,000 in 1994. So we're looking for another packed house when Hubner, Fielder, Kelly, O'Grady, McGee and O'Shaughnessy, etc. Hill and no one from Australia. Nostein's got a ride as well. Kieper, Colinelli, all the top sprinters there. Rousseau, Magnier, Chouet, great crowd of Frenchmen turning up as well. That's next weekend on Eurosport, but if you can nip across to Paris for a nice weekend, it's some lovely weather in Paris, and I'm sure you'll enjoy going around the shops and doing usual things that people do in Paris, and go and watch the bike racing at the evening if you choose to come across. Here we are then, the Mappe on the top of the front here. Not surprising, because the man wearing number 11 in the Mappe jersey should be riding with the white jersey's leader on the World Cup, but he's not. But Johan Museau's team now pushing hard on the front.
Throughout the centuries,
Just that one lone breakaway of Eddie Senior, which has been lasting for a hell of a long time now. We set off this morning at, what was it, 10:30 in the morning, on this very long ride down in towards Paris Tour, a race which Henri Rodin put the record speed up just a couple of years ago. and flashed across the line from a breakaway group of about 6 men. It can happen towards the end that the field can break up, but it's very, very quick race indeed. Onic Redant averaging 46.745 kilometres per hour in 92 when he won it, and he's back in that main group at the moment, I say, nursing the injuries he suffered when he crashed in the neutralised area in the Tour. The Mappé on the front at the moment, driving hard, because if you saw the early part of our programme, you may remember that Johan Museeuw is the leader on the World Cup. He should be wearing the white jersey of the World Cup with the rainbow stripes running down it, but for some reason he started without it today. And I think they're making sure that, senior, that they've got him now. And as soon as they've got him, there's an attack coming on the left-hand side through the murk and gloom of this wonderful October day. Been very, very pleasant conditions indeed. They set off this morning about 10:30, and what a change it was too, because amongst the smell of embrocation was that of hot dogs and frites as well, because there was a fair was actually being entrenched in the town that we started this morning, a little village on the outskirts of Paris, and one of the Motorola riders now decided to sling his hook and lead them, and that is Perron, who's gone away now. So the fairground this morning, we had quite a bit of a circus going on. The bike riders getting ready for this race down, and toward the finish now, the attacks are going to come thick and fast, that I'm sure, now that Senna's been caught, and it's Perron that's going away here. Well, he's a great time trialist, by the way. He rode in the Italian Olympic cycling team, which won a silver medal in the 100-kilometre time trial event, and he also was a member of the World Championship team as well, that placed first in the amateur team time trial. And now he's time trialing on his way in here. So that silver medal in the 92 Olympics. Oh, he's got it nearly wrong. There's nobody to follow this time. He's on his own, and he nearly took the wrong turn. I'm not quite sure that the gendarme stepped out a bit late to show him the way to go. But this is André Perron, quite a big fellow, 6 foot tall. And this race does suit the bigger fellows. Those have got the power to last the distance. But I'm not quite sure they're going to let him get very far away. Talking about big, powerful men from the Motorola team, saw Sean Yates this morning looking very fit. He's had a couple of weeks holiday in South Africa, went off with his wife down there. His wife's got some relations down there, so he took his bike and did some training and riding out with local riders there too. But hasn't got any plans to go back there and race there in the winter. So Sean with the Motorola squad at the moment, minus Armstrong, who packed at the feeding station. Looking very concentrated indeed, as he would have to be. These are long straight stretches. I said earlier on, when Eddie Senior was just ducking and diving through the little lanes, it was an advantage. But right here, you're so exposed. And that's a game thing to do. Just hoping, I'm sure, that somebody else will come up to join him. There you can see the long shadows being thrown by the late setting of the sun, and soon those leaves will be turning brown and falling off the trees. What a pleasant surprise it was to go back to England after somewhat nearly 6 weeks away on the Tour of Spain and the World Championships, to discover that there is greenery there after all, because when I left it was all brown and baked with the hot summer, but the drop of rain that seems to have fallen just recently has made it nice and green. But it won't be long before the leaves turn golden brown and drop off the trees, and thoughts turn to cyclocross and indoor track racing and putting the feet up in front of the fire. This is useful. 3 men trying to get across to André Perron. So he could have some help in a minute. And there they are. But they have a watchful bunch. I'm going to let them get too far, I don't think. I don't know if you can hear the roar of those wheels. The V-section Shimano type rims they've got on here certainly do make a bit of noise, and the roar of the tyres too. I look at the Mavic service car this morning, and just sort of reminded me, as we see him ploughing along here, that there were 3 bikes and they all had different pedals on them, because today with these clipless pedals they've got Time, Shimano and a Mavic version of the clipless pedals. Of course, if somebody punctures or has a problem, or has had a crash and they have to replace the bike. This day and age with so many different sort of clipless pedals. In the old days with toe clips and straps, it wasn't too difficult unless your feet were too big, but right now they've got the problem with the clipless pedals, so many riders using different sorts. So the poor old service chaps. Nice smooth roads here, there's not much chance of puncturing. There's those shadows again. Grosjean, Nobel and Mappe. Oh, concentrate, lad, concentrate, come on. So racing nearly 150 miles. If you dare look back over your shoulder, that little lot coming up at you. Everybody's still trying to get themselves some success and glory at the back end of the year. Last year's victor, Eric Sabel, is riding the race. Today, Johan Mazur won in 93. He's also in that main pack at the moment, together with Arnaud Redant, who won in 92, and Johan Capio won in 91. So we've got 4 of the winners here in this group. As far as the Brits are concerned, the closest we got was we had 2 seconds. One with Tommy Simpson in 1963, and one with Barry Hoban in 1967. I don't think Chris Boardman's going to improve on that today with his condition and the fact that it looks like it's going to be down to sprinters. Well, you never know. There's 1 or 2 chaps in here like Ekimov who can slide off in the last 2 or 3 kilometres and try and stay away. The final kilometre is just dead straight, and in fact, while they've been waiting for the ride to come in, there's been some special 1 kilometre races for juniors. They've just been coming straight down the finishing straight. It's a dead straight line as a sort of sprint championship. It's quite a novel way of occupying the time for the crowd in the finishing area. All back together. You can see we're looking at this big bunch here. Mercator and Uno going away. Looks about the size of Bollier Polly, but probably not quite as tall as him. Turn the field along. You can see, look at this sort of racing here, how it very much suits the Belgian Comes type rider. And that's why the Belgians have won it so often. There's been a break of 15 years between 73 and 88 in this race, when it was not run from Paris Tour, and it went on various other different directions. In fact, they went from Tour to Versailles, and they took over the name of the Grand Prix Autumn. They went other routes, and Bloch to Montlerthie on the Paris suburbs, and Bloch to Chaville, and Cretil to Chaville, and so on. It was dapping around for 15 years, as they now looks like they're going to pull Perron back in again. But if you look back over the last 40 years since Albert Bouvet, the last Frenchman to get it, there's been 15 Belgians who won the race and 6 Dutchmen, and that in fact out of actual 25 events have been held from Paris to Tours. So 21 of the last 25 Paris Tours have been won by either a Belgian or a Dutch, and this is typically the sort of racing that suits the Belgians and the Dutch. The eyeball's out right on the edge of the saddle, as I say, on the rivet, grovelling in the gutter, attack after attack. A desperate winding down process, or wearing down process, which leaves riders a bit exhausted at the end. And Perron's been caught. All back together again, and who's going to launch yet another attack? It's sure to come, because there's no way that some of these riders here... It looks like Chamil in this little lot at the moment. He finished 4th a couple of years ago, looking back over his shoulder. He's not just a rider for things like the Paris-Roubaix early season classic. Garnet Chamil hammering along here as well in that group for the Lotto team. But it's all back together, but it's a bit fragmented at the moment, and that may be a chance for one of those who like to go for a long ride to get away from the sprinters, but we'll have to wait and see. Here, And there's a black box. I said Stephen Hodge was riding with a black box. I've just spotted it on his handlebars. It's about the size of a fair-sized matchbox as such. Not the diddly little computers most other people have, but he's riding hard for Lars Mikkelsen at the moment, who won the Flèche Wallonne earlier on this year and won the Paris-Bourges 12 months ago. Second in the Paris-Bourges this year, Mikkelsen. So he's in quite good form, the Danish rider, and that was the work that's being done by Hodge on the front, just to stretch this lot out, looking for his teammate to come through and get himself nicely positioned on the front. Back in then with Pillon. That was a bit short shot on the point, wasn't it? I just wonder with that camera, what happens when they have a stop for a natural break, as we say. Mind boggles. The Mappe on the front, and it looks to me as if that could well be Jan Moset himself. He may want to stay out of trouble here rather than fall off if there's going to be anything of a comeuppance at all. And it's not unknown that some of the chaps like Moset are quite happy to come to the front and drive it along for a bit. He's just looking for a good placing today. Nice to have a win, but nevertheless just to keep his points in the overall World Cup and to keep anybody out from closing up on him. The man that's, of course, most disappointed at the moment with his position on the World Cup must be Giannetti, having won the Amstel Gold and the Les Bastogne-Liège, and then having that crash which put him out. It was at the Tour of Switzerland when he crashed, so Giannetti fighting his way back in, run a very, very good tour, very, very good World Championship last Sunday. And so just give a thought for those riders who actually rode there just on a week ago, and here they are on the Paris Tour. Complete contrast to riding at altitude and grinding their way up that tremendous long hard climb. Ooh, they're all over the place. Nobody knew exactly where to go then. I don't know what they were switching backwards and forwards for, but there was a slight moment of slamming on the brakes. And you see how suddenly, if you're in the wrong gear, they hit this little climb, and it is back in the climbs where one or two riders launched attacks in the past, and we've got yet again Mercaton trying to get away on the front now. That could be Bartoli, I think, to try and stretch things, to get away from this little group, try and split it up, see if he can get some more points in the World Cup, and he certainly has split this field, but very quickly onto him goes a little fella from the Brechelard team. No, it hasn't split. Hasn't split at all. So they're back together again with this high-speed chase that's going on. Getting very close in towards the finish. So I think it's about 5 kilometres left as far as the riders are concerned, so it could be all down to a big sprint. And this great classic dates back, I say, to 1901. So it's like some 94 years. Not quite as old as the old North Road Club 50, which was held the other Sunday, which I put a word about. And very nice to know when I got back home that the organiser had sent me a copy of the actual programme which was given to all the competitors. Eddie and Ann Jones, thanks much indeed, also for a copy of the last 50 years of the North Road Cycling Club, which was a really great interest. I didn't in fact know that old Ron Kitchen, my great mate, had actually sponsored that 50-mile event on the North Road that brought together so many top time trials over the years. So congratulations, Ron. And in cycling I saw that picture of my old mate Joe Summerlin wearing all black and riding a bike which looked a lot older than him, and he looked very sprightly, like somebody some those years gone by when they rode in all black on single fixed gears on a bike with layback angles and fairly fat tyres. But it's all so different today, streaming along here using all modern technology, titanium, aluminium, carbon fibres, multi-gears, and the gears are on now. They're straight through blocks. I had a good look at them this morning. They're all on very, very big chain rings and small sprockets right now. It's one whirl of a race. And there, that looks to me that Fondres has made his way across this little group here at the moment. That break-up on that climb has now given them a little bit of a gap here. There's a pink-coloured jersey, 1, 2, 3 back from the front. That nice move they made on, it looks like it's beginning to have effect here. It's Moset, and he say, come on through, come on through. Well, this is a fascinating move at the moment. It is Fondres. Fondres is in there at the moment. Moset looked back over his shoulder and said, come on through. Let's all go working here. And that was Minali that's gone with him as well. The rider that was that he's back as well in the pale blue Gewiss colour. That's Minali, who's a superb sprinter. And I'm quite surprised that Minali has gone up there with Mouzeu. What he's probably doing is tracking Mouzeu, because he'll be jolly good lead out if he can get behind Mouzeu. The Gewiss team were doing a good job earlier on. There they are. They've now been joined by another rider, so that's a very threatening breakaway at the moment. That's typical Fondris tactics, by the way. The last 2 years he's done the same thing. About this particular part, running in towards the end, on the little drags, Fondris has had a go. It's a bit closer to the finish than he normally goes. That's a fellow in the pink up the front. And I suspect he's going to ride the Tour of Lombardy next week. But if not, we're looking towards the end of seeing him in his Lamprey colours, because he's off to the ZG team. We're going to ride his bikes next year. And there we are. That's Mouzeu, leader of the World Cup at the moment. And I wonder if he can get another victory here, because that would really put the lid on things. Mouzeu, who won the Tour of Flanders this year, he took the Championship of Zurich too. That'll give him a third victory in the Cup this year. And I'm not sure if he can get it, but we'll have to see. Well, that's Missaglia from the Brescia team, the little ditty fella that's in there at the moment. Gabriel Missaglia, Missaglia, is now sitting in this little group. Well, that's a spirited move as far as he's concerned from the Brescia squad. He's right on Mouzeu's wheel, and you can see how small it is. If you look at the head of the bicycle, it's about well, a couple of inches, that's all, just enough to put the bearings on, I suppose. And you don't normally find little fellas like this lasting as long as this on what is a very hard fought, very fast race indeed. They're normally, especially when it comes to mountains, but he's not only gone with them so far, he's gone off the front. It looks a bit like a juvenile racing. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but what a difference, what a contrast. And he's certainly having a go here. Mouzeu and the little Italian from the Brescia team, Missaglia, now on the left-hand side of your screen. That kite you can see, the red kite, that's 1,000 metres from the finish, the final kilometre, and Mouzeu is still driving away that long straight run in toward the finish, and our telephoto lens picks up another bunch on the right-hand side here. They start jostling now for that finish. As I say, it's the longest sprint in the world as far as I'm concerned. We've had little breakaway groups and so on, but it looks like we might have the bunch swallow up these two riders. Mouzeu looking back over his shoulder, certainly staying out of harm's way. The pack now absorbs him. He looks back there, and yes, snakes across, and they've got him. On the left-hand side, the two blue jerseys, that's the Gewiss jerseys. Looking in there, I can see the pinky coloured jerseys as well of Telecom. A nice lead out being set up here then for Gewiss, and on the left-hand side it's got to be between these riders here. Also for Lotto moving on the right-hand side too. They've got a man in there. Looks a bit like Chamil at the moment, but he's way back off the front. Still on the front then, the Gewiss riders. In fact, no, Chamil's what, third, fourth, back to the front. So the big group behind him, not going to catch this lot, I don't think. Jean-Marie Leblanc there in the pale blue jersey in the centre, got a first-class view. The man with the white head, by the way, is Albert Bouvet, the last man from France to win this race in 56. But there's not a Frenchman in this group that I can see who's going to get it, because on the left-hand side, Minali punches forward. The Italian is going for it. Has he gone too early? On the right-hand side, another storming finish too, but he goes to the line and Minali gets it. Minali's got that one. Looked to me as if the second place might have gone to Chamil. There was a German rider on the left-hand side. It might have been Isabel. I had to wait and see that one. They'll push and shove in here at the finish, because there's very good prizes. It goes right the way down into 25th place, by the way. So even if you finish 10th, you're going to get yourself 6,000 French francs for finishing in 10th spot. So with what, 8th spot getting the thick end of £100, they're still going very hard indeed for that finishing line. The riders now cool down. They're a very excited and very happy man, Minali, who won 3 stages in the Tour of Spain this year, the Vuelta, where he had to retire by the time we got to Barcelona. He won the stage in La Corona, Zamora and Marbella, but he abandoned at Barcelona because he had trouble with his left knee. That was also a crash early on in the year that gave him trouble in the early part of the season. But here he is, powering away here, Minali, just showing superb sprinting form to go away from Chamil just behind him. These two on the telephoto lens looked a lot closer than that, but you can see now the gap that Minali opened up. He's quite a short little chap. He's not one of your big sprinters with legs like tree trunks. He's a wiry fella. You might think he's built more like a mountain climber, but look at the speed he's going now. no doubt about it. It wasn't one of those down to last tire width or half a wheel. Minali just left them all for dead. And that's it. Victor for the Italian, and we've got to look back a long time, I think, to see the last Italian to win this. In fact, looking down my little list here, and I can't see one since Albert Bouvet at all. We'll have to go further back than that, as yet again we look front on at Minali coming down the finishing straight. Most prolific sprinter gets another scalp of this one, the classic Paris Tour. Well, in fact, I just hear Daniel Menonga saying Francesco Moser was the last Italian to win it. I'm looking back down the list too. Thank you, Daniel. If that's the first, if that's correct, then but we've got to go back a bit then for the last of the Italians to get the success. But look at the way that Schimmel came up. And that German rider, I think, is Jürgen Wehner from the Telecom team that came up alongside. Oh, I've got Rossi in 1938 from Italy, Victor here. Yes, there's Werner. And that was Capio there for Refin pushed his wheel through, so he's very close in at the very finish. But that, going back on my little notes here, is an awful long time, the last Italian. Rossi certainly on the Paris Tour as such. And that's going a long way back, isn't it, 1938? I can't think why you mentioned Mr. Moser for, unless I've missed a trick. That probably might to do with the races that actually went on the south side of Paris, which were at the Paris Tour. There we are, this nice city of Tours. We've had the Tour de France coming many times, just usually been a sprint finish. Well, Darrigard winning that a couple of times, the Tour stages here, Brancart, Basso, and Thierry Marie won in 92. But so it's seen lots of sprint finishes in its time, and I wonder what's going to happen on Tour of Lombardy. Well, we don't get a sprint finish there normally, except between 2 or 3 riders, and that could well be an Italian benefit. I hope you'll join us next week on Eurosport to see a Tour of Lombardy, and also the Bercy. But from David Duffield, tractor pulling come up next. Bye-bye.